Okay, hello and welcome. Oh, hi, to another one of these amazing Nobody Studios live stream events. These are events where we get a chance to actually speak to nobodies all over the world and share what we're working on, the companies we're building, how we go about building, and people that are getting involved with us, either bringing their talent or influence or capital to Nobody Studios to help us create something even bigger. We've got a bold mission of creating 100 companies over the next 5 years, and we're going to need lots of help to do it. And part of that is actually the talent that you can bring to help us build these companies, the influence that you can share with your network, what you're doing, but also capital. And that's going to be the focus of today's show, is giving you a chance where you'll get to meet a set of the Nobody leadership team to talk about what it means to be involved in investing in Nobody Studios. So without further ado, I'd like to invite a couple of my favorite nobodies. I love them all equally, but these are just two I get to spend a lot of fun times with, which is, first of all, Tiffany Hansen, who's our Chief of Staff and VP of Operations, and Greg Lovett, our CFO. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, thank you.
All right, so what we're going to be doing today is try to keep this as fun and interactive as possible and give you a chance to sort of ask questions and hear more about what we're doing in the studio. The fun thing about doing these types of formats is that we can see your questions in real time. So as we're going along through the live stream, don't be afraid to put your questions, your comments on the platform, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Throw them in there. We'll make sure that we get in there and answer them as best we can as we go along. We'll pause. We'll take lots of time for questions and make it fun so you can learn about us as we sort of go through this journey together. Often the sort of inspiration, people ask us, well, why are you trying to build 100 companies? And aren't you just trying to build loads of unicorns? And actually, the idea is, no, we're not. We're actually trying to build 100 great companies over the next 5 years. But our belief is that the unicorn mentality, this sort of boom or bust mentality, is actually dated. It's not really where the market is at. The goal of the studio is to build companies frugally and aggressively, often for under $250,000, and then get them into market quickly and exit them in early to mid-stage exits. Greg's going to talk a lot about our actual financial model as we go along. I'll share a little bit about how we build these companies, and Tiffany's going to share about the values that sort of underpin what we're actually trying to do. We believe that we're in a really unique and interesting time of technology and really social innovation, if you will. We believe that we're in this moment of multiple simultaneous technologies arriving at the same time, causing massive paradigm shifts. The internet was sort of a friendly, if you will, innovation that took us over 20 years to get our head around. But today, whether it's the mix of AI, machine learning, I don't think there's a person on the planet that isn't playing around with ChatGPT at the moment, really starting to understand the effects of these technologies when they arrive together. So that means that innovation cycles are going to be shorter, that rising and falls of companies is going to be sharper. So our intent at the studio is to build companies at a high velocity, a quick succession, catch those innovation waves while they're there, and then move on to the next opportunities that we see in front of us. And this is why we have this notion of Nobody Studios being a crowd-infused, high-velocity company creation machine with the goal to do 100 companies over the next 5 years. That involves us building companies faster with more frugal builds and optimizing for higher quality, quicker exits. And this is really sort of the fundamentals, if you will, of how we build companies. We look at investing around $250,000 to sort of incubate these companies over the first 12 months. This is early stage companies that we're trying to invest in and bring to market. When we incubate and ideate these companies, we generally are going to own the majority share of those businesses, often between 60 to 70% of those businesses. And that allows us to actually make some real bold choices about what we want to do with companies in our portfolio. The unique part of actually being a studio is that our studio and portfolio works together. It's more collaborative. So when we see businesses that we thought were one idea and is actually two, we can split them. Or if a business isn't hitting the growth metrics we projected, we can kill it or recycle it and pivot it to a different type of approach. This is sort of a unique superpower that the studio model has as opposed to traditional venture capital investing. And the most important part that's really fascinating to us is that people who invest in the studio are instantly diversified across our entire portfolio. So one investment means you are exposure to many companies and lots of returns. And Greg will share a lot more about that. All right, so that gives you a little bit of an insight about what we're about at Nobody Studios. Again, if you have some questions, throw them in the channel. Don't be shy. We'll take them as many as we can. But with that, I'll pass over to our Chief of Staff and VP Operations, Tiffany, to share a little bit more about the values and the culture that help drive what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Barry. All right, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Values and mission of Nobody Studios, as Barry shared with you, our goal is to create 100 companies in 5 years, and that's a pretty big ask. It's a big, hairy, audacious goal, to tell you the truth. Keeping people happy, keeping things moving along, that's how we're going to do this. We've got a lot of processes in place. We start from the top and make sure that everything is aligned on a corporate level, and so then we can feed that into our new coast. So here's talk about our progressive process. What is our progressive process? That's really what drives everything that we do on the product development side. Starts with ideation, goes into concept, goes into launch, scale, optimize, and then scale. That's where we need to be very quick. We've got definitive gates, we've got definitive goals, we've got definitive check boxes that we accomplish in each of those, and then we'll move on. Barry's going to talk about those later. So that keeps us moving quickly. We don't want to linger with things. People first. Very important side Nobody Studios is that everybody has a voice. Everyone participates and everybody contributes. Doesn't matter what the level is, doesn't matter if someone's 2 hours a week, or like those of us at corporate, sometimes 60 hours a week, if not more. Everybody gets a voice. We contribute ideas. We share things equally. Rationally global. We are a global entity. We've got people all over. We've got Barry in Manila. I'm in Colorado. Greg's in the Midwest. New York, London, Italy, we've got Israel, we've got the Middle East, we want to go into Africa. We are all across the globe. We've got voices, we've got people contributing all over. What that means is that a lot of what we do isn't, it's not isolated just to, what do we need in the United States. We're going to build companies that are going to feed needs in different global areas. Again, it's a cultural thing. Bring it in, we want to understand, and all of those voices will be heard, and we want to understand what the needs are, and we'll develop and create to that. Crowd first. Crowd first is a big one for us. It is another thing that really feeds the company for us. Bringing in the voices of the crowd, our investors, our crowdfunding campaign, which is what we're here to talk about. That Greg will tap on that later. All of that contributes to what we do. Again, as an investor, someone can bring their idea in. Not an investor, bring an idea in. We have an idea lab that's going to look at everything, and we'll think of ideas, and that's what feeds our development pipeline. But the crowd first will contribute to the community. They'll be part of decisions, part of the voices that we work through. Transparency, that's a big one for us. That's transparency on the inside. We're not running a team where certain things are kept on a higher level that other people don't know about. The budgets that drive our progressive development process, the team knows about that. We all are beholden to that. We understand why decisions are made, how they're made, and that's shared equally. So people share in the responsibility, they share in the decision-making process. Those are just really the values that drive us. The mission, like we said, 100 companies in 5 years. That's a lot. So that's where the progressive process comes in. A 100% increase in wealth creation for the crowdfunders. That's a big goal. We have a lot to deliver. We have a lot to be beholden to. All the people that make this happen, we want to deliver and bring wealth creation back to everyone that's been involved. 100,000 crowd-infused nobodies. Part of why we're doing the crowdfunding campaign is to get those people, to bring them into the studio so that they can be part of the voice, be part of that crowd-infused process, and contribute to the decisions and what we're doing. And one in exponentially zeros, 1 billion, 1 trillion, 1 quadrillion people using our products across the globe. We want to touch everyone. We feel that there's so much opportunity out there, and we just want to create a platform that brings everybody in, gives everyone a place to share their ideas and to participate in what we're going to do to contribute to make the world a better place.
Right on. And already we're
Out
starting to
there.
get some questions here now from people out here on the internet. Can we talk a little bit about how investors can contribute to the ideation? So Tiff, you mentioned a little bit about the Idea Lab and our crowd first mentality. Do you want to share a little bit there?
I do, and I invite everyone to join us for a live stream that's going to happen in a couple of days with Min and Kiara, who are in charge of the Idea Lab, and they're going to better elaborate on that process. People can bring their ideas in. We're going to have a little bit more on this in the coming weeks, but those ideas can be brought into the studio, and we'll evaluate it. We'll kind of talk about what the series of evaluation is. Want to have people contribute, bring their ideas into the studio. We'll put it into the lab. We'll evaluate it, talk about it, and it may end up being one of our new codes that we end up developing. So go to nobodystudios.com, click on Join the Journey, or contact us if you've got something that you want to discuss, talk about, bring to us. Let us know through the website, and then the Idea Lab will reach out to you, and then they'll continue that process and that conversation.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And this is really what it's all about, right? This crowd first, or what we call crowd infused, about how we build companies. Tiffany mentioned a process for developing companies known as Progressive, right? And this is a 5-step process from ideation, concepting, launching, and bringing these optimized and scaling it to get it outside the studio. And at each of these different stages, we make sort of relative investments, if you will, to see if we're confident or have conviction to move ideas to the next stage. So even in ideation, we make a couple of $1,000 investment to capture what that idea is. Why us? Why now? Concepting is really this idea of testing the market. Launching is when we build the MVP and bring it to market. And then optimize is really where we're in market and looking for growth metrics to try and get there. And you can see even our crowd power already kicking in with Min, who's the MD of the Idea Lab, sharing. If anybody has any ideas that they want to bring to us, by all means, bring it. Like this is the power of the crowd. We see the crowd working with us at every stage of our product development, whether it's bringing new ideas to us, whether it's being early people to give feedback on products that we're building, turning up the noise when we launch companies. It's all part of keeping people engaged well beyond just an investment, but bringing your talent, your influence, and capital to Nobody Studios. And again, this is one of the most sort of unique aspects, I think, of what we offer, is that everybody can contribute well beyond just capital, but to bring their talent and their influence and their capital to that. And that's resulting in creating some of these amazing companies that we have here. So we have a broad sort of group of a portfolio already up and running. Ovations, which is an on-demand talent platform. Webdelics, which is essentially the WebMD for psychedelics. ThoughtForma is an intelligent no-code platform that we're using. In fact, Ovations was built on top of that. Prehab Life is another company specifically focused around health and wellness. It's a big area of focus for the studio. Sweat Options is a platform where you can trade your sort of sweat options, if you will, with one another, diversified through private investments and capital that you've created or shares that you've earned. Parentipity being an online creator community where parents can be rewarded for their contribution on tips. Loot Hounds is a collectible business. Espionage.biz is competitive intelligence for small to medium-sized businesses. Homeowners is a great way to try and open up the HOA or Homeowners Association, helping people get more insight into it. Hester is this high-end short-term rentals. We've got an advisory board in the hospitality space. It's chaired by Bobby Soper, the former CEO and chairman of Mohegan Sun, one of the largest gaming resorts communities on the East Coast of the US, but also a great mix of Rob Delavovi, who's actually a hospitality guide to the stars and famous musicians with their global world tours, even Carrie Gray, who organizes fantastic trips for high-end people. One of the other companies that we're really excited about too is Sleep Glide, and that's working with Dr. Gina Poe. She's one of the world's leading researchers in sleep and dreams, and her chance to sort of figure out how can we create predictive sleep to make people have a better experience. But rather than just sort of going through these companies, it looks like we've actually got a special guest who's just decided to drop in and say hello. Let's get him live on the stream. Ray, how you doing? Can you hear us?
Hey Barry, hey everybody, how you doing? I'm trying to figure out why my camera's not working, but I guess it's one of those things while you're moving. I pulled over to park to make sure I could join in on the live stream. So you may not be able to see me, but I'm sure hopefully you guys can hear me well.
Well, this is the joy of live television that we're running here now on the Nobody's News Network. But Ray, thanks for first of all stopping your car and pulling in while you're calling us. That's always the first step to make sure that you're safe. But your story is fantastic. You're the co-founder of the studio and CEO of Ovations. So, can you share a little bit about with us like your experience as an entrepreneur coming into the studio and helping to build this virtual events talent marketplace Ovations that you're CEO of?
Yeah, here's one of the most amazing things. Throughout my career, I've been an entrepreneur, started companies, exited companies, been able to travel all around the world and meet people from different backgrounds and have the experience of seeing the world bigger than just my block. It's been exciting to join with Nobody Studios and create something that I had never seen before. I mean, I've seen the venture capital world, I've seen the Wall Street models, I've seen the unicorns of companies, and been involved and been a endorser of some of these major companies. But for me, it was much bigger than that. It was creating an opportunity not just for me but for my family and my community to have the opportunity to grow and build outside of what the normal was. And I was a public speaker. I'm still a public speaker. And I was traveling around the world and had one of my best years set up before the pandemic. I met Mark in the studio. And of course, the pandemic happened, and all my speeches and presentations that I had were shut down for that year. And I said, oh my goodness, what am I going to do to create my revenue, to take care of my family? And the studio was kind of the right thing at the right time, and one of the biggest things that I'm ever going to do in my life. Hopefully the last thing that I ever do in my life, and just create opportunities for people. So we were able to we talk about ideation from the beginning. Mark and I went back and forth and talked about me joining the studio, and then it also turned into a situation of I had an idea of a company, and the company was kind of in base creation within the studio, and I got to get involved and talk through it, create a name to change the name of what the first idea of the company was, and kind of put my own spin on it, build my own team, start to create something that's going to be great for the market. Made sure that we had the right company for the market, and build it and turn it into something that we think is going to be super special in this first quarter. We're launching Ovations, connecting people to opportunity, and I'm so excited. And the great thing about it is that we leverage the talent of people who are in the studio, not just the capital, but the education, the influence, and everything else, the people in the studio, to make sure each one of the companies are successful. And I'm just happy to be one of the first CEOs and co-founders to launch and make everybody proud. So Ovations is coming to you this quarter. So look forward to it. We have some amazing speakers already on the platform, some amazing people that are hiring the speakers and bookers, and we're going to change the world and how education is done.
Yeah, no, I love it, Ray, and thank you for joining us. To share your story and what's inspired you to join Nobody, to bring your business to life, and really take action when people facing adversity, which we love. So, and this is just one, everyone, a suite of the companies in the studio. As we mentioned, ThoughtForma is a intelligent no-code platform. We actually did another live stream with Jason Edge, one of the co-founders, is that yesterday. Really recommend that you check that out to hear his personal story of co-founding his company, starting in the garage and building it up to the business it is today, and building companies like Ovations on top of their platform and taking them to market. Similarly with Webdelics, the world is really changing and starting to adopt or explore plant-based therapies. And we've had the chance to spend time with some of the world's leading experts. We have a fantastic podcast with Scott Mason, where he's exploring this idea of psychedelics and making it become the place for people to learn and experience the pros and cons of plant-based therapies and have a conversation that they can't have anywhere else. And it's like great to see so many people, as we're sharing our story, get excited and say they want to become Nobodies too. And this is really the purpose about us having these sort of events, where we can connect openly and transparently, as Tiffany shared, about what we're doing in the studio. So you can feel part of the company creation process. This is a really unique thing that we're doing, and creating lots of communities like Parentipity, where parents can sort of share what they're working on, how they've lessons that they've learned. And it's really starting to turn up some noise. We've been lucky to be encouraged or be part of some of these most amazing type businesses and references throughout the world. It's all sort of good, and exciting times ahead. So with that, while we've been lucky and even listed as one of the top 10 venture studios for 2022, let's hear a little bit from our CFO, Greg, who's going to share, his background, and then also what we're trying to do at Nobody Studios in terms of your investment and potential returns.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. Yeah, what you're seeing on the screen here is what you get from an attorney when you ask him for just a couple sentences to let people know that these things are based on assumptions. So, you can't argue with them either. Say no, you have to include this. So, anyways, we won't spend much time on here, but yeah, let's plow past this. So what you're looking at here, this graphic is trying to summarize how the investment is structured. So at the highest level, you're investing in the studio, and then the studio has these different newcos that'll end up being subsidiaries that it owns. So if you're familiar with like a parent subsidiary model, that's what this is. It's very different from a traditional like venture capital model. So in a venture capital model, they typically create funds. So they'd have a first fund, a second fund, a third fund. You have to invest in each of those funds to benefit from the proceeds that come from the companies that they've invested in those funds. This is different. So long as you own or I should say, retain your stock in the studio, you'll benefit from everything we create from here on out. So there won't be separate funds. You invest once and you benefit from everything. But let's talk about a little bit more detail around our funding in these things, and then how exits, how that would land with investors. So first thing, for those who aren't familiar with kind of like investment structures, just a little bit of a summary. When we talk about the studio's investment, that's us funding the progressive model that Barry talked about a second ago. And then at the point where they've been validated in the market, they've got some legs, we then kind of spin them out to get outside funding from third-party resources. And we're actually in deep conversations with a couple that want to provide the funding for all of our newcos that we spin out. You see here that there's the seed round, Series A, Series B. These are just like a company's first, second, third round. You would expect that the valuation for this particular company that's going through these investment rounds, you'd expect that the valuation would increase after each round, or you would hope. You'd also expect that the amounts that are being invested increase over time. And again, there's variation to these things, but generally speaking, that's what you'd expect. So when we talk about a company going through an exit, they could exit at different stages. They could have gone through all of the cycles within the studio, gotten an external seed round, Series A round, and then got acquired, right? Or they went public. When we talk about an exit or an exit event, that's what we're referring to, is that these portfolio companies will get acquired or go public. It could have happened after the Series C round. It could have happened, right after we invested our funds and before they even got a seed round, they could have gotten acquired. So when that happens, let's take a look at what that would mean in terms of distributions to investors. So go ahead, Barry.
One great question here about asking, if people invest now, will they be able to invest more later?
It's super tricky. We're not sure. We're in conversations now with a couple of funds that want to provide all the funding we would need for all the studio's needs, long term, and as well as all the newcos. So potentially not. You never say never, but we want to get, and I'll talk about this in a second, we want to get to the point where the studio is a self-sustaining machine so that we don't have to pull in additional funds. There certainly will be opportunities. Well, I shouldn't say certainly. There will potentially be opportunities for the newcos as we spin them out. We're looking to do potentially do crowd rounds for those, but we're not sure about the studio. Yeah, not sure. But good question.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so
yeah,
you know, if you're interested, now's the time, essentially. And
yeah. So when there's a distribution, we'll take a look at a single portfolio company, and we'll just say they, for purpose of this example, they got acquired. And we've got some assumptions. So we look at different models. We have like low, medium, high models. So in terms of a medium model, if you've got a company that's gone through, you know, all the cycles within the studio, got a seed round, Series A round, and then a Series B round, and then exited, we'll assume in this scenario that it exited for sub 100 million. Because it went through external funding, we'll say that the studio owned 30% of that portfolio company at the time it was acquired. So early on, right, we owned 100%, but through dilution, we now own 30. So that would mean that when this company got bought, there would be 27 million to distribute. That's what the studio would have received. So at this point, what the studio does with the funds is formulaic. So we take, of that, we take around 30%. We pay back the studio for its investment, and then the remaining, we take 30% of that and reallocate it. So this is how we do like a reinvestment fund. So this is how we continue to build newcos going forward without having to raise capital going forward. But the rest is distributed out to all the shareholders, which would include anyone. It includes the team, includes investors. And in this case, it'd be 19 million. So if we take a look at like 1,000 individual who had invested $1,000 in the crowdfunding round, in this scenario, and assuming the whole angel round was taken out, plus all the crowd round was taken out, this investor could expect to get almost half his or her investment back with this single portfolio going through an exit. Single portfolio company going through an exit, excuse me. So we're really trying to build, you know, what we like to call a distribution paying machine, right? Like, unlike a lot of crowdfunding opportunities where typically you're investing in a single company, you're wanting that company to rise in valuation so you could sell it at some point, right? Same thing if you just popped onto E-Trade and bought a stock. Generally speaking, you're expecting that to increase over time and then sell it. Really, the value with this is in the holding, because you can see here, in terms of expected or projected distributions over time, for this, again, for this $1,000 investor, he or she could expect to get from 4,000 to 8,000 over a 5-year time frame, and from 24 to 55 or over a 10-year time frame. And this is just in distribution. So this doesn't include the value of the studio equity you'd be holding, which is a whole separate value proposition. That in and of itself would be highly valuable. But really, this is developed, this whole model is developed around those who hold it. And you can see the returns are quite substantial. So I've walked through a lot. Let me stop there and just see if there's any questions. I'm not looking at the comments, Barry, so if there are.
Yeah, no, there is. Like, again, a lot of the comments coming through are always like, some people who've already got involved, questions about, you know, the windows of opportunity for when they got involved. One of the questions I think we often get is, like, when could people expect to start potentially seeing some returns? So if they make an investment in this round of our crowdfunding, when might they expect to see an opportunity or some of the returns start to come to fruition? Yeah,
it's a really good question. I'm going to preface the answer by saying the team is in the exact same spot as all the stockholders. Like, all of our upside is tied to us getting successful exits for the portfolio companies. We're also equity holders, just like in the investors, and we don't want to be overly diluted. Obviously, if there was some strategic reason to pull in, you know, additional capital, we would. But you know, we look to these portfolio companies exiting as a funding mechanism also. So having said all that, it's probably in the 2 to 3 year time frame. There could be one earlier. Again, if we've got an opportunity, there's a couple that, even right now look to be pretty valuable. Could we exit it or exit a portion of our position in order to fund the studio, which would cause a distribution? Yes, we could, but it's probably in that 2 to 3 year time frame.
Great. All right. And one of the questions we often get as well is about crowdfunding versus equity crowdfunding. Can you share a little bit just to help people understand who are maybe newer to investing or maybe have never made an investment in an early stage company before? What does equity crowdfunding actually mean?
Yeah. So, and you and I talked about this, Barry, on a previous session, but historically, and again, platforms like Republic, like what we're on, they're different. But historically, when you heard the term crowdfunding, really what you were doing is you were funding an early stage company, and for that you would get like their product, right? Like if they were building a widget, you might get a widget, or you might get some other thing outside of shares in the company to which you are providing your funds. What you're getting here, it's structured initially as a SAFE, which is, for those who aren't familiar, it's basically upon an event it converts to equity. But so that you've heard us say this, and we've written this as well, you will convert to equity before there's any distribution. So essentially what you're investing in is you're going to get stock in the studio, which again is it's a great time to be investors, because historically most people who would want to invest couldn't, unless you were a high net worth individual. In all the companies I've been with before, we had to actually check this and make sure that anyone who wanted to invest was a high net worth individual. So with the crowdfunding regulations now, anyone can really invest in what we're doing. So it's a great time to be investing. And again, to answer your question, Barry, that's what you're getting. You're effectively and essentially going to get stock.
Great. So for folks out there, you may be thinking, oh, there's economic turmoil at the moment, there's doom and gloom out there in the economy. But the interesting part is this is actually the best time to be builders. Right? At the moment, we're not worried about the valuations of companies or what they are, because we're building these companies. And really the opportunity for us is to be building over the next 12 to 18 months and then see these companies start to come to fruition at the optimal time. So this is actually quite an exciting period for us. We feel like we're in a great position. The timing is actually almost on our side in terms of how we're building these companies. And it really is such a phenomenal, diverse and broad team. We've got many entrepreneurs, business builders, innovators who've been part of the studio from the very beginning and continue. You've just got to get a glimpse of a few of us today, between Tiffany, myself, and Ray and Greg. It's such a broad audience. You'll probably have seen many of the other live streams with Min, Kyle, Donald. These are fantastic people. We've got a really exciting show coming up with Seychelles next week. So really recommend you subscribe to the channel so you can see and meet more of nobodies who are helping to build these phenomenal companies that we're working on together. And that is all added to a fantastic already group of great investors, from companies all listed here, from Facebook to Google, Stripe, American Airlines, just to name a few. And all of these people are bringing their skills to bear to build companies together and achieve something more than we can alone. So what we'd really encourage you is, if you've been inspired by what we've shared today, maybe you'll bring your talent, maybe you'll bring your influence and share what we're doing with other people, or invest, be part of Nobody Studios and a state stockholder just like everybody else on this call. Our stock is all the same. There's no difference in it. So go to republic.com/Nobody Studios. You'll see our campaigns page there. There's lots of information. If you've any more questions, please reach out. It's been great to spend a little bit of time with you all this afternoon and this morning, wherever you are. Thank you, Tiffany and Greg, for joining us. Lots of people sort of diving in to say thank you for being on the show. sharing what we're doing. It's an absolute pleasure, and look forward to more of these shows in the future. We're really focused on being as open and transparent as we can. So follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, YouTube, whatever your favorite channel is. We're Nobody Crowd pretty much on all your favorite platforms. So look forward to seeing you all there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.